I think right now there's been an incredible amount of conversation around masculinity and violence and harassment, and these conversations are pivotal, but often in these conversations, racialized voices, queer voices, and trans voices are not ones that are really being heard. And so I think that this book is an opportunity for a racialized queer trans voice to get heard in the conversation around masculinity. I often don't feel trans enough because I haven't physically altered my body, and I still often get read as male, which is something that I talk a lot about in I'm Afraid of Men, is this strange tension of fearing men while also appearing to be a man, and the pain in that. But as someone who has also been seen as not queer enough because I have had relationships with both men and women, I'm sort of used to feeling like who I am doesn't quite match dominant or popular notions of whatever particular group. And so for me, I feel like it's important for us to find and adopt new ways of being queer. There's not just one way of being queer. There's not just one way of being trans. And I think we're in this exciting moment where there is an interest in increasing visibility. And if I can represent a kind of transness or a kind of queerness that we haven't yet been exposed to, I'm excited about that possibility. I think a lot of my pain and confusion has come from adults and people around me not listening to me when I said that I felt a certain way. And I know it sounds very basic, but I think the number one thing that parents can do is really listen to your children when they're telling you how they feel about themselves, their body, what they want to wear. Listen to your kids. And I think often there's a lot of fear that if a child behaves a certain way or dresses a certain way to school, that they're going to get harassed at school. But I think that when we preference that fear over allowing children to be who they are, we also send children a message that they should be afraid, as opposed to really understanding the ways that children are so resilient. I would rather have gotten picked on in school for being myself than being picked on in school for hiding myself. I think the biggest piece of advice I would give to someone who is thinking about transitioning is take your time. I think that in our culture, I think our culture is really focused on a destination, and whether that's with sexuality, like, are you gay, are you straight, what are you? And same thing with gender. Are you a man, are you a woman, are you trans, what are you? And I think that queer and trans people are often robbed of ambiguity. We're robbed of taking our time, kind of in the ways that celebrities are made fun of when they come out, and you're just like, oh, well, we knew Ricky Martin was gay like 10 years ago. And my whole thing is you actually don't know anything about somebody until they tell you. And I think that, queer and trans people deserve the time to grow into who you are. For me personally, when I started thinking about transness, the joke I often make about transness is that for me, transness was like kind of, I felt like it was like a ship that had passed, and it should have happened when I was 25. And yet 10 years later, I started thinking about it. And one of my friends was like, one of the things I was really worried about was, what if I make a mistake? What if I ask people to use a particular pronoun and I changed my mind? And one of my friends said, it's okay to change your mind. And it was so nice to hear that. And she was like, why don't you start with a small group of friends, get them to call you by the pronoun that you want, and see how that feels for you. And that's exactly what I did. I took some time, and so that's why I really recommend take time and talk to the people around you. I think the number one thing that I would love readers to take away from this book is to really challenge that little voice in your brain that tells you, oh, this is too girly, or oh, that's too manly. I think that we are trained from the day we are born to categorize things in these very formalized, gendered ways, and I think that this is extremely damaging, and not just to trans people, but I think to all of us. I think we all suffer every time we place those kinds of categorizations. And, I would love to imagine a world where, a quote unquote boy can wear lipstick and it's not seen as feminine or masculine. I would love to imagine a world where a girl can have short hair and that not be seen as masculine or feminine. These might sound superficial and about appearance, but it's so much more than the appearance. It's the way that having your appearance reflect who you are can make all the difference to an individual. So yeah, that's the world I'm dreaming of.